Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Pints with Pals. I'm your host, Jeremy, and with me I have Mike and Jason. How's it going, guys?
Oh,
Good.
it's going
How are
great.
you?
Yeah, doing pretty well, actually. I've had a pretty fun week so far. How about you guys?
Yep. I have as well. I I got
Anything
to
exciting?
yeah, I got to move like so we're getting our basement finished. I'm pretty sure I've brought this up because I want to have like the bar and the pool table and all that kind of stuff downstairs. Well, I am like into 3D
Making.
printing. You guys can't really see, but that whole shelf behind me is basically a whole bunch of little knick-knacky 3D printed stuff.
Mhm.
Um with that comes like I don't know, 30, 40 trips up from the basement of crap that I had to put somewhere else. And I moved it all into my garage last weekend and like a lot during the week. It has not been fun. Like literally buckets of sweat, like going up and down the
Oh, I
stairs so
bet.
much. And it was just because I had like one of those like modular shelving systems that had like so you basically have like the weird like rack thing that you could put on there, the like tough shelves
Mhm.
or whatever. Well, I'm taking stuff off those shelves, so I have to take the stuff off the shelf, set it down, take the shelf apart, bring the shelf up one freaking shelf, no, half of a shelf at a time, basically, because I can only take one of those stupid. I don't know. It was just a lot of work, and I was really unhappy about it.
Well,
But now
I
it's
hope
all in
you
the garage, and my wife's like, "Why did you bother doing it? They're only going to be doing it for like 2 months." And I was like, "Sure hope I use my 3D printers in the next 2 months because they're definitely set up."
well, I hope you had a pint while doing that, or after.
Yeah, we had many a pints this week. Yeah.
As
Many
for
a
me,
pints.
as you can see, I'm in a new location. I'm back in Michigan this episode. Uh, Not much for me this past week. Just traveling back to Michigan.
Cool.
So my week, I think me and the wife went out to dinner. That was kind of nice. Went to this little Italian restaurant out in Elizabethton. They're pretty good. My wife likes their what's it called, eggplant parmesan or something like that. It's
Mm.
actually pretty good. I'm not a huge fan of eggplant, but that one's actually really good. They season it very well. And I got their basically their equivalent to Olive Garden's like tour of Italy. It was like lasagna and chicken parm and spaghetti and stuff like that. But their lasagna is probably the best I've had from a restaurant. And I hate lasagna from restaurants.
Oh,
I just they usually don't. They always do something wrong. Either the noodles are undercooked, the noodles are overcooked. They don't use any ricotta. Their sauce is either too sweet or too salty. There's always just something wrong, and it bothers me. Other than that, like the week's gone pretty well. I have some neighbors who went out of town. I have to go check out their house, make sure it's still locked up and stuff like that. So that's always fun.
the house is still there.
Yeah, still there. Make sure.
I hate
They
when
called
people
yesterday,
steal my
yeah, so
house.
which was pretty interesting. Right. Well, so the guy that I'm watching the house for, he's like, all right, so I have beer in the fridge, and that beer needs to be gone before I get back. And by the way, I have 3 more 6 packs in the closet that needs to be drank too. I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's from Alaska Brewery is the name
Okay.
of it. It's pretty good. It's an amber ale. You can't find it in Tennessee. You can get it in Ohio. You may be able to get it in Michigan.
I think I did. I
And
got
we
it
can do
up
an episode
up
on
north
that.
when I was in the UP. They had
Okay.
Alaskan Ale or whatever
Okay.
that one is. The amber. It was delicious.
Yep, the
Really
amber
good.
one. Yeah, it's really good. Yep, really good. But today, what we have on our
Speaking
docket
of
is
Michigan
the
brewery,
is the blueberry cream ale from Cheboygan Brewing Company, which is a crazy name, Cheboygan. If you're not from Michigan, Michigan
Cheboygan.
people,
We like to
we have some of the craziest names.
yeah, we like to really butcher those names. I have not had this yet.
Neither
I've
I.
had a couple, so I already kind of know what it's like. But let's go ahead and get this thing open if I can gently
It's
open it
a
without spilling everywhere.
reading the can. They're a young brewery, 2011. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
The funny thing is I actually bought this for us to give to Jeremy, and so
Wow,
that's very blueberry.
that smells delicious. Is it breakfast time?
Right.
It almost
So
maybe not. I was gonna say it almost looks like it has a blue tint to the foam, but it was just a shadow.
a very little, well, kind of purplish kind of color.
Yeah.
So I was telling the story to Mike, and so I guess I'll go ahead and tell Jason and you guys as well. So I drove all the way up to a certain city in Michigan just for a picture, and that's it. As we were driving up there, the wife saw this country store. On the way back, she's like, "Hey, can you stop at that country store?" I was like, "Sure, why not?" So it's just an old, off the beaten path, little like meat shop, farmer market kind of place. Well, they had a bunch of beer there and relatively cheap. Well, I happened to see blueberry cream ale Cheboygan beer, a 4-pack for $7.99. I'm like, for $7.99, I'll buy it. It's fairly cheap. And I had that evening. I was like, oh, this is phenomenal. But then I noticed when I was in Frankenmuth, like it was like $11 to $12.99, like a 4-pack. It's like, so I got a really good deal at that mom and pop shop.
Guessing you
But yeah,
were
the
more
blueberry is
north.
strong on the nose.
I
You
don't
can
smell
taste
it
it.
anymore.
Yeah.
The blueberry has left the building
It's very
here.
strong in the mouth.
Yeah. I don't taste the cream. I don't know what they're doing to make it quote unquote a cream ale. Because it tastes like yours, but like a little bit. I guess the mouthfeel has a little.
I was gonna say the mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they use lactose sugar, which is a milk sugar, basically. That gives you that creaminess to it.
Yeah, I was gonna
So
say
if
it
you're
kind of
lactose
tastes
intolerant,
like
you'd have a hard time with this.
Yeah, well, I'll go grab some Lactaid.
No,
it's
I think it's really, really good beer.
So like I guess the only way I could like compare it would be like if you were to like take not a spoonful but like a little bit of like regular sugar and then a little bit of powdered sugar. It almost tastes like the difference between the two is like this is almost like a powder sugar feel. So that's what I think that kind of does. Yeah. Would you okay, so because your crowd and personal favorite is that blueberry ale that you make, the honey blueberry ale. Would you want to mess around with that, or do you like to try and see if you could do anything like this, or is it like don't screw with a good thing?
Yes, I would like to try to recreate this. I think this is really, really good. And I think what I would do differently is I would just use the recipe that I use now for the blueberry honey ale, and I would just add about 3.5 ounces of lactose to give it that more creamy sweetness. Because this is very sweet beer. I think this is not quite like a dessert beer, but I feel like it's, for me anyways, I think it's pushing that boundary of a dessert beer because of the lactose and the malt, but the maltiness that you have right there. I don't think I could drink more than one in the.
That's what I was about to ask. I was like, I feel like I've got a few beers that I'm like, so I always try and line them up into like the least, like if I'm gonna have like my wife and I will go downstairs and like try and go through our beer fridge and we're trying to line up beers. We'll try and do the least sweet beers in succession, so like they go lightest to heaviest, and then sometimes we get to like two heavy beers that are too sweet, and it's like, okay, well, we're just done like drinking at this point, especially with like high ABV beers, because you're literally done. It's almost like drinking like a juice force and then immediately drinking another beer. But that's just a for instance.
I have a different shirt.
I know, just for an example. But yeah, I mean, it still falls underneath the cream ale category of beers, which I think I was talking to GZ or Jason about this earlier. Well, like cream ales have been around since like the 1800s. Like it's not a new style. It's pretty old. It wasn't super popular in the United States. I found out it was more popular in Canada. But when the Prohibition happened, that style of the cream ale became popular in the United States. So it became like a pseudo lager. So what makes it a cream ale is basically what they use corn in there. That's how you get the creaminess from it. So hopefully next week or so I'll be making my cream ale, which is a honey cream ale, which I use about a pound of corn in there to give that nice creamy lightness to it, a little more body. So it's really, really good.
That's one you've made before, right?
Yes, I have, but I changed the recipe just a little bit. I'm using different hops this time. I'm using German noble hops because I want the IBU to be lower, because the IBU was like 25. This would be about 10.
Are you going to use the same water still?
Yeah, you use the same water. I'm using the same salts. Oh, I'm going to add carapils, which will give it more of a head retention.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Cool. So when in the process would they add the lactose? Just at the end?
So at the end.
So you could potentially do it to your beer now. You know what I mean?
No,
like
my beer's already bottled.
Okay. Well, I know, but like, how does it have? Like, is it like once at the end before it ferments? So it's got to ferment.
So
out?
you add it right. Yeah. So right at flame out is when you add it.
Okay.
So you don't burn it.
Okay.
And you just gotta stir it in, and then you would cool down your wort. Do you add it now? I mean, I guess I probably could.
No. I was just when you said at the end, I kind of misunderstood. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I probably misspoke.
No. I get what you meant by end. I feel like I might not be as clear as I probably am normally, so I'm a little bit slower on the uptake. We talked, or we will have talked about some breweries in like North Carolina. I feel like Michigan has an abnormally high number of breweries. Is that just me just being from Michigan? Because I feel like when I go to like Total Wine, there's like an entire shelf, and this is just distribution probably playing a large part of it, but there's like an entire like probably 50 foot shelf of just Michigan beers, and then like the rest of the beers that they have in the same shelf on the other side. I feel like I have no gauge because I'm not from any other state.
Right. So I feel like Michigan, even in Tennessee, a lot of people talk about Michigan beers quite often. But I do know when I go to Total Wine in South Carolina and Tennessee, that same shelf is full of that state local stuff. So it's just as big and just as full. I just don't think those breweries are as known as Michigan breweries are.
I wonder why.
If that makes sense, right?
Do you think Michigan breweries are like better?
Distribution?
Or just more distribution?
Probably
I think
distribution
helps a lot. I also think there is a underground scene of beer trading that happens a lot. So I feel people will trade beers, and I think Michigan beers are kind of sought after. I've had a few homebrew members that went straight to Michigan and started like pretty much Kalamazoo, and actually he rode his bike from like Kalamazoo all the way up to Traverse City.
Holy cow!
Yeah. Oh, he's
motorcycle or bicycle?
Oh, bicycle.
Wow. That's too much work for beer. I'm sorry.
No. Well, that's why he's built like this and can do it. So
he held up a pen for your listeners.
Yeah. In Pittsburgh, if I go to a bottle shop, it is like I'm amazed at how many. Like, there's always a new brewery that I'll find out. It's like, oh, I didn't know this was here. Mm-hmm. It's hard to find anything else. I'll say, like anything, like, literally, not even just Michigan, but anything else. I will say, like I can get Goose Island there. Like I can still get Bourbon County. I can't get that in Michigan now.
Yeah, that's a distribution thing. I think Michigan has a hard time with that kind of a distribution. Well, I don't know. There's like, some would call it a mafia. Others would just call it like a lockdown on the distribution. Like that's why a lot of the breweries are selling out to major corporations to try and just get distribution, to get outside of the state or even outside of like their region. Cause like some places in like other parts of the state won't even get like Founders beers because they just won't, they don't have the market because they just don't get the distribution. Well, it's a little bit of both, right? Like one way goes the other way.
And as for Michigan having more, you're looking at a place in Michigan. Of course, they're probably going to have more more Michigan breweries.
Right.
But also think of the location. I mean, you have Michigan, Ohio, Indiana. You get stuff from Illinois, some stuff from Pennsylvania. You're getting a ton of stuff in like influx. But in North Carolina, like where Jeremy, or down south, there's not as much. So I don't know the answer. I know Washington and Oregon are huge. The Massachusetts, Boston area, that's nuts.
Yeah, I guess when you go anywhere, they're basically going to have, especially like going to like local bars and stuff that aren't a brewery, they usually have like 3 or 4, if not however many, whatever percentage of their taps, it's going to be like, if they have like 10 taps, there's going to be like 5 of them that are local and then 5 of them that are like the generic. But I feel like, yeah, that's kind of a weird thing. It's just like a weird perspective kind of issue that I have being here and not traveling much in the US. Like, not because we haven't been doing this long enough for me to like really kind of pay attention to what I'm seeing at places. You know what I mean? Like when we went to Chicago, I was like, oh, Hellas, that's something I want to try. And then like the other one that we tried too. And I was like, oh, pills. I'm like, all right, I'll try these now. And I wouldn't have done that a year ago. So I just feel like this podcast is doing exactly what I wanted it to do for me. And that I'm more excited and more willing to try something that I think I'm not going to like because I might not like it. Yeah, that checks out.
Well, I'm excited for you to try a sour. I'm not sure you're going to like this.
I'll do one. I'll have a hard time with it. So just a couple points before I forget again. So I did some quick stats. So California has the most breweries.
Makes sense.
All together. They have like 957. This is from 2022. Michigan has 407. Ohio has 402. North Carolina has 392. Pennsylvania, I just saw in a awesome. So Pennsylvania has 531 breweries.
Wow.
But I assume they're probably going more east than west. I'd assume.
I don't know.
And
like Pittsburgh area.
Tennessee only has 154.
Ah.
Well, you have dry like counties. So I don't know. Oh no, Kentucky has dry counties.
Kentucky has like the most. Kentucky has like 90. Since you brought them up. DC only has 16. That's interesting. Mississippi has 20. Just for so like the smallest ones. That's funny.
But DC, so
like Virginia does have a lot.
How about Virginia? Because I mean, or Virginia, Maryland, like DC.
DC is tiny.
Right.
Maryland has
compared
134.
Yeah, so in the DC area, like the metropolitan metro area. Yeah. There is, I mean,
16. That's still quite a bit, right? Because it's not that big of a district.
Yeah. There's a lot in Virginia where I used to live. Like, yeah. And now they're in Pittsburgh, of course, but.
But the other thing I was going to bring up, so they that it's not a bar. Tap room, I think is a better name for it. The tap room you took me to in February, like they claim to have, I think it was all their beers were like from Michigan. It was like almost 96 beers on tap or something like that. That was just insane.
It was Hopcat.
They had, and I was not happy with
anything
the beers I got at all.
Right.
No, I don't like any of them.
I think that
I was so disappointed.
I think that has like this twofold, right? I think that partially it's however they're like getting the beer up to the taps because they have so many of them. They're probably traveling all across their entire bar. They're probably not refrigerated very well in the basement because that's got to be where they're coming from.
I don't clean their lines.
Right. And then they're switching them out like all the time. So Ann Arbor is a big college town. So like you have just all those kids constantly drinking those beers. And I feel like Ann Arbor's a snootier college town too, because it's just an expensive school. Not like it's
a good school.
I'm not saying it's not a good school. I'm saying it's just a little bit like it's a little bit more expensive. So like the kids that go there drive better cars than I've ever driven. And I just think that they're more willing to pay more for beer and a good time than like I did in college when I was like, can I have Natty Light? What's cheaper than Natty Light? I'll have that.
Big Bear.
Yeah.
It was 88 cents a 40.
I'll drink the thing that you dumped all the glasses into. What is that?
The inverse of that is
Big Bear back there. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, dude, we were talking about cheap beers. Like I remember drinking Big Bear. It was 88 cents a 40, and that's with deposit.
Wow.
So it was 78 cents plus the 10 cents deposit. I mean, that was the cheapest beer I ever had.
You want that 10 cents back because that's more than 10% of your cost of your beer.
Right.
I was gonna say the inverse of your situation with Hopcat. I had a friend come up from Pittsburgh, and we went to the Detroit Hopcat, and this is back when I was taking a break from drinking, so he was trying like everything, because a lot of the stuff is from Michigan, and he said he loved it. He loved all the beers and everything was good. This was
There you go.
also before COVID. I'm guessing if you went in February, that's going to be after COVID. Maybe things have changed.
It could have
I
been
don't
just
know.
the
I haven't
beers that
been
we
to
picked were gross too. I don't know.
I haven't been to
Yeah.
Hopcat in since
There's
they
a
got
lot
rid
to
of
choose
their
from there too.
they got rid of the
Crack
crack fries. Yeah, because
Because it's offensive to crackheads.
Right.
Whatever.
Sorry
I'm
to
not
all the
going-
crackhead listeners we have, but maybe you should stop doing crack
Yeah.
or smoking crack. What is
Yeah.
it? Stop
Doing-
smoking
I
the
don't know.
drugs. I'm hip.
So
I'm with it.
either one of you have been to Sheboygan area
No.
or Sheboygan
I
Brewing
don't know.
Company?
I don't think so.
I've been to the area. I've never been because it's up by Mackinac.
Yeah.
Mackinac.
Like south.
City. Yeah. The
Southeast or
never.
something like
I've
that?
never been. I was when I looked it up. I was like, oh, that's where it is. Never been up there. I'm going up to Gaylord, which is about an hour and a half away. Maybe I could do
Yeah.
a trip in a couple weeks, but
So my cousin Scott, he bought me a bunch of beer. I think I shared it with you guys. Again, they're all Michigan beers that we could probably start buying together. But he got me the blood orange honey one.
oh, I've heard that's good.
So again, it's a very pungent smell right off the blast. You get like the orange, and then once it mellows out, it's a very delicious beer. I wanted to get their blackberry blonde ale. That sounds phenomenal, and they have an oatmeal cookie stout. That sounds really good too. So if they're anything like this, I mean, I think they're definitely be a good place to go and maybe just hang out one day. Go
I'm gonna have to
chill on the
look
lake or
at that picture you sent with all your beers. I didn't pay much attention to it, thinking that I could
Yeah,
get
they're
those
all
beers
Michigan.
right, and then
Yeah.
because with Jay up here, I think that's a good time for us. Because I think that again, I'm going to say it's the hardest thing for us right now is just finding a beer that we can all find. That's not so. Most of the beers that we're going to find are going to be like super mass produced, and then it's just going to be like a giant beer that like is they're kind of taking. I don't know. They have to play to the masses, I guess. So like we'll potentially get something that's not like the best of that category to try, but obviously something in Michigan may not be the best of that category either. But at least it's like a small subset of that category versus like a like sellout, for lack of a better term.
Right.
In a couple next weekend, 2 weekends, I'm going to Gaylord, and we always do a day trip out to Bel Air, which has Shorts Brewery, and Shorts brews everything. They just like, yeah. If you bring, I feel like if you brought a recipe to them, like we're gonna brew it and bottle it. Like we don't care. They have so much that they put out. I mean, they have their staples like Soft Parade, Locals Lights, things like that. But they'll just like they just brew so much. So I feel like I should go there and grab like a 6-pack of random stuff and bring it back. But again, you might have the problem where it's hit or I feel like it's hit or miss. Like it could be good, it could be bad.
Well, I think that in those littler breweries too, like the same exact beer that they were brewing, like if they brewed one last year and then one this year, it's going to taste different between the two potentially. Like if they're small enough batches.
Yeah. Shorts is pretty big now. They weren't 10, 15 years ago, but I can definitely see that.
So Jeremy, was you pulling it back to this blueberry cream ale?
Oh.
In order, would your recipe just literally be the recipe from your blueberry one with lactose added to it?
That's what I would do. Yeah, I would do something really simple because I already like the way it tastes. So I think just adding the lactose would just make it more sweeter. Basically, I think that's all it would add to it. I don't think it would affect the ABV because it's a non-fermentable sugar. I think it'd be more creamy. It is not. No.
I feel like I'm very susceptible to non-fermentable sugars. Like if yeast doesn't eat it, I don't like it.
You're probably used to the plant-based crazy ones.
Yeah, I hate
like your milk stouts have that in there. Pastry stouts have it in there.
Yeah, I had to throw away some pastry stouts because they were disgusting. I forget what it is. They call it stevia because they're like with natural sweeteners, and I'm like, can you not consider stevia a natural sweetener because it's disgusting? So like
chlorine, it's not natural.
Right.
I think I don't know. I think some of the plant-based sweeteners are just too sweet.
Yeah.
At least agave, when you buy it, it will tell you that it'll say this is 1.2 times sweeter than table sugar, basically.
Right.
So So if you're used to adding like a tablespoon or whatever, teaspoon into like your hot tea, you're like, well, maybe I'll just cut that back just a smidge, and that should be sweet enough for me. I did want to cover like a couple other variant beers that you could possibly buy that may be kind of close to this because I don't think this one distributes very far. So the one I came up with was Garage Brewing Company. I'm gonna call it BS on what they say. They say it's a blueberry cream ale, which is great, but it says it has zero bitterness. And the reason why I call it BS because you have to add hops, which is a bittering agent to knock down like this, all the sugars. So it's gonna be bitter. So that's just BS. But if you can find that one, that one's pretty good. Highland Brewery, which doesn't go very far, they have like this. It's called berryfication or something like that. It was really, really tasty. I just had that one the other day. The Fathead Bubbleberry Blueberry Ale, which is just a blueberry ale, phenomenal.
I have that.
It is so good, but it's hard
right now.
You got that one? Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to give it to you guys because
Yeah.
I wanted to try it between yours and that one because it was like I was reading, I'm like, this is a blueberry ale. And I was like, cool, honey blue.
Yeah.
It's a honey blueberry.
So no
ale.
honey, but just blueberry.
Oh.
Yeah. So and then there's
I
another
think it
one
is a
that's
honey
from
blueberry.
Wisconsin. It could be. But there's one from Wisconsin. It's made by Grain Belt, and I don't think they distribute very far either. But it's just called Blue, BLU. And it's a blueberry lager. So it's not an ale; it's a lager, which is going to be slightly different. And it is clean and crisp.
I was going to say it's got to be probably way more.
blueberry.
Yeah, you can't hide any flavors
And
that way.
No, it is very good. My neighbor, the one the house I'm watching, he gave me one. He said he's going to swing by Wisconsin on his way back from Alaska and buy a couple cases. All right, let's do it.
Nice.
He drove to Alaska from Tennessee.
Yeah, so him and his wife drove. Yeah, yep. Yeah.
To
All
be
right.
retired.
Yeah, he already.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I have a question
I
about
think
this
it's
beer, Jeremy,
pretty
for
good.
you.
Oh, go for it.
So
Take my brain.
well, based on your knowledge, it says it's fermented over blueberries. So what does that mean? Obviously, there's blueberries in it because you can smell it and taste it. Unless
Yeah.
that's, I'm assuming hops aren't doing that. But how do they get their flavor? Fermented over blueberries.
So what I think, and I could be completely wrong, and I don't want to insult Cheboygan at all. I feel like they probably did a twofold. I think they probably used some extract on top of the blueberries. Then I'll come back to the over fermented in a second once I cover this point. So I've talked to a few pro brewers before, and they said to get any flavor from that fruit is astronomically expensive because you never know how much flavor you're going to get from a fruit because it just varies all the time. So that being said, I feel like they use probably a little bit of like extract on top of taking blueberries, probably from Michigan because a lot of people buy berries from Michigan. And it's probably what it is. They probably froze them first. So basically, what that does, it will take all these cellular walls and like will crystallize them. And then when you defrost them or thaw them out, basically, it breaks down all those cellular walls so you get all the juices and sugars out of it. So probably what happens is it's probably bottom fermented. So like all the blueberries are on the bottom and all the warts on top, and it just kind of, as the sugars are being eaten from the yeast, they're just mixing all those flavors in together.
So
That's what I'm thinking.
In that scenario, the likelihood of the flavors coming from the blueberries are minimal. So they're doing that.
I would say minimal. I would say at least 50% because I don't want to debunk them, but I mean they may do 100%.
Yeah.
And if they do that, I'd be interested in what next year's tastes like.
Right. I was gonna say because that's the problem, right? Is like your blueberries are gonna. It's a seasonal thing because like this year we had a super dry spring. Is ironically raining today, but it hasn't rained. It's rained like twice in like probably 2 or 3 months, and that was like with spring. And I'm like, cool. So like I feel like that's gonna either screw up crops unless they're irrigated, which maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I feel like they probably, especially early crops, don't really need to because of they just assume spring is going to be April showers, so to speak. But yeah, I would be interested to find out how much of the flavor is extract versus like an actual blueberry, because they could brew it over blueberries, but I feel like that would alter the flavor. And I guess a place that's like they're their cans aren't these cans are not printed on. They're just like a sticker or whatever. So it's not like they're not committing to this can style or anything. So
Well, I will say in my research for this, I did find a review of this beer from 5 years ago, and the can style is actually different. I think that they streamlined or whatever. They unified all of their designs because all of them have like a design like this. If you look up the blood orange that Jeremy was talking about, it's similar looking. I didn't watch his review of it, but I'm curious to see what he says, and maybe it tastes different, based on how Jeremy said the blueberries of the season or the year could change it. So,
well, Jason, if you do go to Cheboygan in a few weeks or a couple weeks or whatever it is, you happen to go to there, just ask the guy that's pouring the beer. Be like, hey, I got a quick question. Like, so I'm not a brewer, but I'm thinking about like, how do you guys get this? Do you guys like do it this way or that way, and just kind of go from there?
I have a quick question. Can you explain?
Speak slowly and articulate.
Enunciate, yeah.
Enunciate. Well, we're from Michigan. We always enunciate. What are you talking about?
I really like this beer. It really reminds me of your beer.
Yeah.
So
it's just creamier. That's what I feel like.
Yeah,
I feel like it's definitely a creamier.
To be fair, I could drink more than one of your beer. I feel like I could only have one of these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says 14 IBUs, and it definitely maybe it's the cream, but it sticks to my tongue. It's definitely
the back of my tongue.
Yeah, lingers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good though.
It was a nice. So when I had it in Frankenmuth, like I said, I just sat outside, and it was like
it'd be a good summer,
late
like
spring,
beer.
and just kind of sat out there, just drank. It was really good. It was hot.
I was gonna say it was hot when you came for the spring, wasn't it? Like 80,
it was,
like 78, 80 degrees, somewhere in there for like late May, mid-May, actually.
It was very late May. Yep.
Well, on that note, it looks like we've hit our wrapping up point, as they say in the biz. I keep trying to say, and I'm not in the biz. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. I had a great time, and I hope you did too.
Yes.
Don't forget to have a pint with your pals.
And please drink responsibly.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Ring that bell.
And as Jason said before, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them in the stuff below. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.